Okay, thank you, Professor Su. And it's really an honor and a pleasure, and also a duty to assume this hosting and future the presidency. I feel very honored and very pleased to take over the duty to promote the understanding of international relations in Taiwan and among the public and among the elite. So today I really happy to be able to moderate the top scholar of China studies in the world,黎安友, that is his Chinese name,黎安友. That in Andrew Aston's speech, he just arrived 3 days ago, and he will give the most important observation of Trump 2.0 and its impact in Asian policy. So after that, we'll have the forum to be assisted by 3 panelists, as including 赵老师 and 顾编辑 还有顾主编 还有苏老师 and then we'll have an open discussion, and you can ask any questions to Andrew and to all the panelists. They know everything, okay? So, and you can give comments too. So now please join me, give me a big applause to our keynote speaker, Professor Andrew Nathan, please.
Thank you, 两苏，苏兄苏弟。Well, you know, the wonderful thing about teaching is not about all the money that you make, but it is about the people that you meet when you're teaching, and having a relationship throughout life and watching people that you encounter. So Suchi is always very generous to describe himself as my student, and I never contradict him. But you know, you watch the people that you've encountered to grow up and become young old people. So, and I always feel very proud of the people whom I've known in the course of my career as a teacher. The point is that I prepared a talk that I really think is too long, so I want to go through it relatively rapidly. And so the assignment that I was given is an impossible assignment, of course. So Professor Su Humda says that, you know, I will know everything and answer every question. But of course, as you all know, the Trump 2.0 is unpredictable from day to day. But we do know a few things. So some of these things are very well known to everybody here, so I could go through them very quickly. But we know that China views the United States as the main threat to Chinese security, because the United States historically has been antagonistic to the communist regime and wishes that the regime would change into a liberal regime. And the United States is really the only reason why China hasn't completed its project of territorial unification by taking over Taiwan. And the United States, as long as it has dominated the oceans, has the capacity to interfere with Chinese economic prosperity. And on the side of the United States, we don't know what policy Trump will unfold toward China yet. But we do know that in his first term as president, Trump was the one who decisively turned American policy away from engagement. And Obama made some preliminary moves in that direction. Trump came in and said, China's our rival. He mainly thought of it in trade deficit terms, but he turned the policy. It was a trend in American thinking and strategy, but Trump was the one who turned it. But whether he'll continue to view China as an antagonist or competitor, or whether he'll flip around, we don't know yet. Next page. We know, I don't want to talk, because of time, I won't spend too much time talking about Xi Jinping, but Trump has in common with Xi Jinping that both of them think, to quote Trump, only I can fix it. In other words, that I'm the one person that can save my country, and I'm going to save my country. But Xi Jinping's view of saving the country is relatively strategic, I would say. And he has, over the course of his time in office, he's unfolded a variety of strategies. He's increased Chinese presence in the South China Sea. He's ramped up pressure on Taiwan, economic, diplomatic, and otherwise. He's unfolded the Belt and Road Initiative. So she has moved step by step to do a lot of things in pursuit of the mission. Trump also has a mission, but we don't know quite what it is. I think that Trump's mission is focused on his power base. His power base are the angry lower middle class, working class, middle class, the people who have been harmed in the United States by the process of globalization and by the hollowing out of American manufacturing and of their towns in the Middle West and the industrial belt. Those are his power base, and those are the people he thinks he's going to save. And I think he thinks he's going to save it by bringing back sort of bringing back the 1950s to the United States with manufacturing jobs, in essence, is his idea. So he doesn't think that much internationally, only as international influences the domestic economy and the manufacturing part of the domestic economy. Next page. Now, when I was editing the slides, in a different version of this PowerPoint, I removed the Huangjin Matong because I thought it's not very polite. But I hope that you will all forgive me for my vulgar inspiration at a certain point when I was working on this. But the point of that was, to me, was that Trump is a guy who understands money. And there's a sort of legend about Trump that all of his toilets are made of solid gold, but I believe that's just a legend. It's not really true. But I picked this image off of the internet to suggest this idea that Trump thinks money is the only thing that's important to anybody. So when he was negotiating with Kim Jong-un, he had a DVD prepared for Kim Jong-un about how prosperous North Korea could be if he gave up his nuclear weapons and allowed resorts and hotels to be built in North Korea. Trump doesn't understand things like national identity, which is something that's very important for Taiwan, or for the sense that countries want to have to be autonomous. I see the Polish ambassador. I'm thinking, for Poland, this is off the topic. I don't have a slide for Poland, but obviously this is a country that cares tremendously about having its own autonomy and control over itself. And that's what North Korea cares about, what Taiwan cares about. But Trump thinks if we move all the Palestinians out of Gaza, we build hotels, what's not to like about that? And he thinks if we can offer a business deal to Ukraine and a business deal to Russia, that everybody should be satisfied. He doesn't understand the deeper values that people have and the strategic interests that people have. I think I do not attribute to Trump a set of bullet points in his head. I think he has an instinctual kind of gut way of moving forward when he has problems in the international area or in any policy area. But I think it boils down to his idea that we don't want wars, we don't want to be paying money to protect allies, we don't want to be bothered with a lot of stuff going on in the outside world. We just want to bring back manufacturing and bring back prosperity to our people, to my power base. And that therefore the old history of the United States as the one superpower, the policeman of the world, we are overextended. We got to pull back from all of these regions where we're, as he thinks, being suckered by different countries that are using us to protect them. So when he talks about peace through strength, it doesn't mean what the words say. The words would say, we will be strong and we will impose peace and we will defeat any aggressor. But I think what he really means by that is that we're going to pull back from our global commitments, and we are one great power, and he recognizes Putin as one great power and Xi as one great power. and he thinks, let Putin have his legitimate, as Trump would think, sphere of influence. Let Xi Jinping have his sphere of influence. We don't want a war. We don't want to be involved too much. So it's kind of a new strategic triangle, but it's not like the old strategic triangle that Nixon created that was really strategic. It's just an idea that there will be three great powers and the other powers don't matter too much. Let's go to the next page. Trump is so unpredictable partly because of his style of work, but also because his team is divided. So some of the people on his team, we know very well what they stand for. So Rubio has a long history of promoting human rights, of the Ukraine, but the Xinjiang, the Uyghur, Forced Labor Protection Act, and being very anti-China. Waltz, the national security advisor, is very tough on China. Peter Navarro, the trade advisor, and the guy who's the new head of the U.S. Trade Representative Office, these people have a history. We know where they stand on China. And the institutions of the Pentagon, its job has been to prepare for a war with China. The Congress has been very anti-China, and public opinion has become quite anti-China, but there are other advisors to Trump who have financial interests in China, including Musk, of course, most obviously, as well as the others that I've listed on this side of the soft liners on China. But the thing is, and then I'm not sure yet about Vance and Hegseth. Hegseth doesn't really have a independent record of policy views, and Vance has concerned himself more with domestic issues so far, and said, after getting into the Trump team, just says whatever Trump says, so I don't think he has an independent view. But the thing is, though, that we see that Trump doesn't respect his own team. He believes that they are his servants or his valets and his assistants, and that he's the only one who decides, and sometimes he listens to people and sometimes he doesn't, or he listens to the other person next. So we know that he'll get different kinds of advice, but we don't know which advice, if any, he will pay attention to next. Now I want to talk about 4 areas of competition between China and the United States, and you all know about these things, so I'll just go very quickly. So the security competition, the military competition, is focused on Taiwan, of course, as you know. So China has the largest navy in the world now. If China were able to resolve the Taiwan question, that navy would be unleashed. It would no longer have to concentrate on preparing for a Taiwan contingency, and it would be able to go onto the high seas and travel on all the oceans of the world. And we do not know what China's ambitions would be after that, but presumably they would have capacity, and they would find reasons to intervene in various places around the world. And we think more and more, I think people in the United States believe that if Xi Jinping decides that he needs to use force to resolve this problem, he's more likely to use a blockade or a quarantine than to use a direct attack, which is, all of these things are difficult operations, but an amphibious attack is a hugely difficult operation. We know that he told his military to be ready by 2027, but the consensus of us analysts is that that doesn't mean that that's the deadline for attacking. And in fact, it really looks like their military is not going to be ready because they have all these corruption purges. The diplomatic competition is one where the United States, under any of our presidents, has not really been in the game. We are not as active in Africa. We're not as active in the Human Rights Council. The Chinese are extremely active, but under Trump, obviously, Trump is accelerating the withdrawal of or carrying out the withdrawal of the United States from the diplomatic arena, canceling USAID, pulling out of the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, pulling out of the World Health Organization, and so forth. So, and we don't have, so China has this Belt and Road Initiative when we did have USAID, which we don't have now. Its projects were very low-key. They were not construction projects. The amount of money that the U.S. government put into it was much less than the Chinese government invests. American investment in places like Africa was to encourage private investment, but the private investment was not flowing. So China was beating us before, and now they're beating us more so in the diplomatic competition. Then there's the third area of competition, which is the trade competition, which seems to be the area that Trump cares about the most. He cares about the trade deficit. I'm not an economist, but the economists that I read and hear all say the same thing, is that the trade deficit is not attributable to China or to any other country. It's attributable to the habit of the United States of consuming more than it produces. And if it's not a trade deficit with country A, it's going to move to country B or country C, which is happening to some extent. But if Trump thinks that it's a bilateral issue and it can be solved by negotiating with Xi Jinping, what can Xi Jinping purchase from the United States to balance the trade deficit? So what do we actually sell to China? So the top thing that we sell to China, now you have the handout, I think,
Yeah.
because you can't read this from where you are, but if you look at the handout, the number one thing that we sell to China is soybeans. So how many more soybeans can China use? Meantime, they've diversified their supply, by the way, to Argentina, Brazil. The number three thing we sell is crude oil. The Chinese have diversified their imports of crude oil. The number seven thing is corn. And then the other stuff that are in our top exports to China are things that the Chinese have been replacing the American product with their own product, like aircraft, like cars. I mean, the Western cars in China going down and the Chinese cars are taking over. And then when I was picking this graphic off of the internet, I noticed something I don't quite understand. This one, number 4, is blood, serums, and vaccines. Well, I can understand about vaccines, but I was really surprised to learn that we're selling blood to China. Okay, apparently that's a fact. And on the other hand, we're very dependent upon China for our manufactured products. If there were a war and we put sanctions on China, there are so many products that we don't produce and that nobody produces, that China's taken over the market. You all know about all those products. So it's really much easier this is a what if, so I'm not saying it would ever happen. But if anybody is going to sanction somebody else with a trade shutdown, China can sanction the United States much better than we can sanction China, because we're dependent on China for a lot of the things that we need. We found that out in the COVID pandemic, when we suddenly needed masks. And my friends in China, we needed masks, and my friends in China were taking pity on me, and they shipped masks to me. Next slide. And if Trump wants to use so why is Trump doing tariffs? This is another thing that there's a lot of debate about. One theory is he's doing it to threaten the other side and then make them negotiate, like with Canada, Mexico. Another theory is he's doing it to make money for the federal government so that they can cut taxes. But I think, I believe him when he says that I'm doing tariffs to bring back industry to the United States. I don't think it's possible to bring back industry to the United States. I mean, it's possible in science fiction or something like that. But reality is that the United States has a very low amount of GDP for manufacturing. What does it say here? 10 point something % of our GDP is manufacturing. And it's not going to come back if it were to come back. So, for example, TSMC is investing. Well, that's not, I mean, our car industry is shrinking. We're not competing with Chinese cars. But for example, the TSMC investment in Arizona is not, in my opinion, is never going to compete with the efficiency of the TSMC fabs in Taiwan, because the conditions, the labor conditions, the style of discipline in American factories, the engineers, if they come from Taiwan to Arizona, are going to then skip out in a short period of time and go work in California and so on. I don't think we can bring back manufacturing. So Brad Setzer, who's at the Council on Foreign Relations, has said that leaving out exports to Canada and Mexico, the U.S. manufacturing exports to the world are about 3% of U.S. GDP. We're not a manufacturing superpower, but if you want to do the science fiction and say, no, I insist we're going to have very high tariffs, we're going to keep those tariffs on until the factories come back to the U.S., how many political cycles will that take? We have these 4-year political cycles, so I don't think that the policy will, unless, of course, Trump abolishes the Constitution and abolishes elections and lives to be 108 years old, that's 30 years from now. Then maybe. Okay, next slide. I think that the most important of the 4 areas of strategic competition is the tech area, because whoever dominates 21st century technology, everybody else has to buy and license their technology. The country that owns the technology is going to be very, very wealthy, and is also, given the nature of 21st century technology, whoever's technology is being used, that country will have full espionage access to all of the countries that use their technology. If I'm using a Chinese automobile or a Chinese telephone or a Chinese medical device, if I have a Chinese medical device in my hip, the Chinese are going to know what's happening in my hip. Okay. So the next slide. So the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, which is an anti-China organization, but I think quite well respected, did a study of 44 different areas of advanced technology and which country is in the lead in each of these areas. So you can read on your slide, I think, what are the 44 areas that they're talking about. I don't want to take the time to do so. But they found that China's in the lead in the vast majority of these areas, and that what they call technology monopoly risk, in other words, that the country that's in the lead is going to maintain the lead, and it's already sort of finished competition, is very high in many of these areas of tech. So I'm not making a prediction, because having made a lot of wrong predictions for many, many years, I've become humbled or even humiliated. But so maybe the United States can come back, although the fact that Trump is trying to destroy the elite universities in the United States is not a good sign for the American position in the tech competition. With the way the American system works, the universities are the source of most of the basic level science innovation that then goes into commercial applications and military applications and medical applications. So, and you know that Trump has threatened to cancel $400 million of federal grants to Columbia. Can you believe it? To Columbia? If you want to cancel it to somebody else, be my guest. But, and if I may, a digression here to say that the reason that the Trump administration is threatening to cancel $400 million is the arts and sciences, people like me on the Morningside campus and our students. The people whose grants are being canceled are on the Uptown medical campus. So they're very angry at us. And their patients are going to suffer. So this is an irony. Next slide. So people talk about maybe Trump is going to seek a deal with Xi Jinping. The bottom line that I want to say here is that there's no deal that Xi Jinping will accept that would stabilize the competition that exists between China and the United States. So there's an idea that conceivably Xi and Trump could reach some kind of a deal that would bring stability to Asia and reduce the tensions around Taiwan and in the region as a whole, and with respect to Australia and all the countries in this region, the Philippines and so forth. Trump could give away everything. I'm not saying that he will, but because he's sloppy and he doesn't understand the subtleties and diplomatic language and the implications of things, what Xi could do for Trump is to say, I will try to rebalance the trade relationship. I'll buy more of your stuff. I'll revalue the renminbi. We'll try to work on the trade deficit. But Xi would not, especially important to say, Xi would never commit to peaceful resolution of the Taiwan issue. He needs the military threat. He would be humiliated. He's not a person who would accept humiliation. He's too smart to give up, to commit to a thing like that, and I don't believe he would agree to help the United States mandate with Ukraine or North Korea. Xi is loyal to Putin for realist reasons. It's not a sentimental thing, but for both Putin and Xi Jinping, their relationship is in their respective national interests. And for either one of them to line up with the United States, which is untrustworthy and has a lot, is inherently a threat, geostrategically speaking, to those countries, that won't happen. But Trump, on his part, has already done some of these things. He says, I don't care about human rights and democracy, so he's not going to bother China about that. He might agree to open up the American market, so now we have restrictions on Chinese investments and on the sale of certain high-tech chips to China that Trump might say that's okay, as he's already did it with, who was, when the two Canadians were arrested, what was the company? Meng Wanzhou is what company? Huawei. So back in Trump 1.0, when Trump said, never mind about Huawei, it's fine, we're going to release Meng Wanzhou. So he might do those things, but he might even do something like agree to a fourth communique on Taiwan, or to say, I'm going to stop arms sales. If Xi Jinping goes to him and says, your arms sales to Taiwan are what's causing the tension in the Taiwan Strait, and if you stop that, things will be much calmer. I wouldn't put it, I'm not predicting it would happen. I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if Trump got tricked by that proposal, because he doesn't understand the complexities and he's after a quick answer. So Trump's very dangerous. Thank you. No, go ahead. And I think I'm going to skip the next. Well, let me just say this. I'll just talk about the headline on these slides. There are some people in the United States who think we have a China problem, but China is going downhill. China has a real estate crisis. China has a local debt crisis. China has a corruption problem. China has a demographic problem. So in the United States, we can wait for the Chinese to solve our China problem. And I say that's not true. China is still very strong, has a lot of assets, a lot of policy options, and so that I don't believe that. Next slide. There are some people, next. Some people in China who have a parallel argument, this sort of Dongsheng Xizhang argument that says the United States is it's reached the end of the road for the United States, so China can back off and let Trump continue to destroy American soft power, hard power, and economic power. And I do feel that the United States has serious problems, but I also think so far today, I don't maybe change my mind tomorrow, that the United States is still quite resilient and that it will continue to be presenting a challenge to Chinese interests in the world. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So this is, I believe, is my last slide. Is that true based on what you see on here? That's the thing. So what is the implications for Asia, for Taiwan, and for other countries in Asia? So it depends so much on this unpredictable factor of Trump. First of all, personally, which way is he going to go when the time comes? So right now he's busy with other issues. He hasn't really prioritized the China issue. Obviously, the Taiwan issue is dependent upon his China relationship. And he's been busy with Ukraine, he's been busy with Gaza, as well as Canada, Mexico, Greenland, and Panama. So when he gets around to the China issue, which way is he going to swing on China, on Taiwan? And by the time that that happens, to what extent will American credibility and influence have been weakened, and to what extent will his domestic power base have been weakened, are all things that we don't know. Xi Jinping might take the position that this is a good time to attack Taiwan, but my own view, and when I've been speaking to people here this week, most people I think agree with my view, is that instead of that, Xi Jinping will wait and see whether he can negotiate with Trump, or whether Trump will find some way to voluntarily sort of back off from American commitments in the region. So in that sense, I'm a little bit optimistic that we don't face an immediate crisis launched by China in the Taiwan Strait. And then the question is that whatever happens, all the other powers will respond in their own way. So the idea that there can be three powers who decide among themselves and everybody else is a passive actor, that's of course not the way that the world works. And so important ones to look at in Asia, beginning with the Philippines. So if American power in Asia weakens, if Taiwan comes under Chinese control, or in some way the US pulls back from Asia, which I feel like is Trump's long-term trend, the Philippines probably will have no choice but to tilt back to China as they did under Duterte. But my view is that the other major powers, Japan, South Korea, and Australia, who have lined up in varying ways with the United States' traditional policy of defending Taiwan, would instead strengthen their capacity to resist Chinese influence. And that could very well go to building nuclear weapons, which is something that's dangerous and we don't want to see, and which is a complicated political process. It's not a complicated technological process for these countries. They have the nuclear capability, but from a political point of view, for example, for Japan to make up its mind to do that would be a long struggle, but it seems to me that would be the trend we would predict. India is a country that basically is antagonistic to China ever since the 1962 border war. So I think that the Indians would similarly, they have a very hard time acquiring weapons and training the military and evolving their military strategy, but I think basically they would be wanting to defend their primacy in the Indian Ocean region, which China would be contesting in this case. So that would be and Europe, which has begun to see itself as having a security interest in the Taiwan Strait. German, French, and British, small number of ships in the South China Sea and in this region to show their interest in it, I think would also harden their stance against China. So China would find all of us would find a more complicated world with a lot of actors scrambling to protect their own interests autonomously because they can no longer depend on the United States. Thank you all for coming, and it's great to see some old friends and, as the saying goes, the cliche, some new friends. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy. Giving another big applause to Andy for such a long journey to give such a wonderful, insightful speech. Thank you very much. And now, so before opening the floor, we would like to invite the director of the Weatherhead Institute of Asian Studies at Columbia University to present the newest project establishing the Taiwan Study Center at Columbia University. That is the director, Catherine. So we welcome Catherine to present this wonderful project to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Catherine Forche. I'm the Executive Director of the Weatherhead East Asian Institute at Columbia University. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the Institute and a little bit about what brings us to Taipei this week with Andy. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Institute, it's a research unit at Columbia University that supports research on East, Southeast, and Inner Asia at Columbia. Unlike the departments at the university, the Institute is able to work across departments and across the university as a whole with the professional schools within the School of Arts and Sciences, and so our reach is much farther than a traditional department is at Columbia University. And we use this reach to promote the study of Asia in all of these various areas of the university. So, you know, we feel the role of the Institute is vital at the university, and it is also quite long. We just celebrated our 75th anniversary this past summer. The Institute was started in 1949 when it was felt in the United States that in the aftermath of World War II, experts on China and Japan in particular were needed in the U.S. to help inform U.S. policy towards the region as it rebuilt after the war. After the initial years of the focus on China and Japan at the Institute, they added Korea. In the late 90s, early 2000s, the Institute started its Modern Tibetan Studies program. And I'm very happy to say that our current director, Professor Lian Nguyen, who is a scholar of the Vietnam War, has refocused the Institute on Southeast Asia as well. So the Institute has a long history at the university, but one that is building. And we see Taiwan as the next area for development for the Institute. We have a very impressive roster of faculty members at the Institute, Andy being one of them, whose work touches on Taiwan. It is related to what they do. We have quite a deep roster of China scholars at the Institute, but scholars like Andy are retiring. And so what do we do next? So this past summer, we celebrated our 75th anniversary, and we used that as an opportunity to kick off our Taiwan Studies Endowment with the help of Frank Wang. I'm not sure where he is at the moment. Upstairs, okay. With Frank's help, we've been able to kickstart an endowment to support Taiwan studies at the university, and I'm very happy to say that we have already raised $250,000 to support the Andrew J. Nathan Lecture Series, which will focus on offering lectures, both large and small, on the Columbia campus on Taiwan and issues related to Taiwan. Again, going back to the mission of the Institute, because we are situated within the School of Arts and Sciences, we have our roots in the humanities and the social sciences, but we're not limited to those subjects. So while we can offer presentations like today's topic, which focus very squarely on foreign policy and political science, we can just as easily offer lectures and presentations on Taiwanese films or Taiwanese literature or things of that nature. So we are able to reach all of these various areas. Now, the lecture series is a great place for the Institute to start. We have a lot of experience in running programs of that nature, but where do we go from there? With Andy retiring, we see the next logical place as being establishing a chair for Taiwan Studies at Columbia University. With an anchor faculty member, you see the impact Andy has had over his decades of work at the university, educating the next generation of scholars and policymakers, both in the United States and abroad. And so we feel that establishing a chair focused on the study of Taiwan is crucial, and that individual will anchor ultimately a Taiwan Study Center at Columbia University. Now, there are two other universities in the United States with Taiwan Study Centers already. One is Stanford, one is UT Austin. You'll notice neither of those are on the East Coast, neither of those are in New York, and neither of those are Ivy League institutions. And so we feel that Columbia is uniquely positioned to capitalize on its place within the American higher education institution system to really ground Taiwan studies within the Ivy League on the East Coast and in a major metropolitan area. So what can a Taiwan Studies Center do? Right now, the options are endless because we haven't formed it yet. But really what we see the center is doing is amplifying the work of a Keystone faculty member. That can be through hosting postdocs, that can be through hosting research scholars, adding lecture series and conference series and executive leadership programs. Supporting internship programs, offering fellowships to students doing language study and area studies in Taiwan. And so we feel that the options are extremely exciting, and with the support of Frank and others in this room, we're really excited to pursue it in the time ahead. So that's a little bit about us, and thank you very much.
So maybe you want to add some points concerning the project establishing the center? You want to add some points?
Not really. We've always had a tremendous interest in Taiwan. We always do Taiwan programming. Now we're going to be able to do more. I think it's important to keep the breadth of the Taiwan experience and everything. Of course, everybody's concerned about cross-strait and all that thing, but there's, as you know, much more going on here that's of interest economically, technologically, culturally, and so on and so forth. So we're happy to do more, and have our students who are interested get interested and have a chance to. So I think it's great for us to do, and it's good to bring more attention. I was telling somebody that when I took the taxi to the airport this time, the guy asked me, "Where are you going?" I said, "Taipei." He said, "Oh, Japan." So people don't know enough. And Taiwan's quite a big country, big economy, very important in a lot of ways, but people, don't know enough. So we think it's a great opportunity. And Catherine has explained everything about it very well. So that's it. Who's next?
Thank you. Okay, give them both a big applause. So when Andy says Taiwan is not really a small country, I have an example that we are 1.75 m, but we are located at MBA, so that's the problem, right? So because Taiwan is not really small, but we are surrounded by the big economies and very populated states. So that seems that we are not so tall, but we are never short. So that's the reality. Okay, so now we are going to hold the forum and with 3 panels, but please feel free to take any dessert and drinking as you like. It's very casual. So now join me giving a big applause to the first panelist, Zhao Quansheng 教授, okay, from American University. I just give a short presentation in Chinese English. 赵教授是大陆第二批送到美国留学的优秀学生，当时全中国大陆不到100个人，他是1981年的时候特别拔尖选出来，那之后他在 Berkeley 拿到博士， 然后也在日本做过研究，而他是一个能够教日本政治的一个华籍的美国老师。然后他现在就在华府的 American University， 那他跟美国华府的智库、美国政府、国会都有非常密切关系。最有趣的是，他曾经代表中国大陆出席美国国会的高铁听证会，这段历史很有趣啊，他会待会也讲，就他讲这个中国的高铁经验。So he's really the top expert of China study and located in Washington D.C., having excellent relationship with Congress, think tanks, and the government and diplomacy. So please join me giving a big applause to 赵全胜赵教授. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to be here, and in particular to hear Andy's lecture. Just like Dr. Su, never took your class, but we all call you teacher. That's the benefit to be a senior, right? Everybody is your student.
Older than everybody.
Yeah, that's the case. I have prepared 20 pages PPT, but I guess I given only 10 minutes, so I will push very quickly, like 1 minute for 2 pages. But before that, I would like to thank Dr. Su, who is my longtime friend for decades. And also, currently, I'm a visiting professor at National Taiwan University, Taida, on leave from American University. So I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you for National Taiwan University. At the same time, at the same time, my first time visit Taipei was 33 years ago, 1990. That was with National Chengchi University. So many longtime friends was here. At that time, Suchi was the deputy director of the Center for International Studies, 国关中心 at Zhengda. So from him, I learned a great deal. We talk every day, but not only politics and international relations. And he was the one who took me the first time to karaoke. So that was just transferred from Japan. And Professor Bao Zhonghe was one of them. And among, because he said, since you are one of the first PhD in poli-sci from United States, why don't we get together? So he asked for a group of Taiwan PhD in political science. I have a practice. If the audience, more than 90%, I will follow the native language. So I'm going to use mixed, just like Professor Su, English and Chinese, because I just learned Catherine and Hualing, the two from Columbia, they all speak Chinese. 那我现在呢就可能更快一点，我可以，因为我的准备的这个呢是英文，所以我快速的过一遍。那么我这个下一页 ，Trump 2.0，对吧？川普和中美博弈。那么我主要是要讲一些我对东亚形势的一些分析，主要用的是个权力转移理论，和我所说的叫 wishful thinking。其实我非常高兴，刚才这个安迪教授的很多看法，我们是不约而同的。另外我还讲 two 上 two 下，就是两上两下。另外呢，关键是怎么看美国，怎么看中国，这个是个非常关键的一个。然后我就接下来就讲这个川普2.0，一直还要讲一下他的台湾牌。最后呢，我自己的一个看法就是4个不会停止。 下一页。那这个我自己对东亚，因为我在美国从1981年过去，然后1987年开始教书，也就是有44年了在美国。那么我一直在观察这个东亚地区，我把这个地区呢就说成是两上两下，就是后冷战时期。也就是说，美苏如果相比的话，美上升，苏或者俄罗斯下降，这个非常明确的。那中日是中国上升，日本下降，所以合起来是两上两下这样一个情况。下一页。但是呢，我在这个中国大陆还有东京、华盛顿都做 presentation 的时候，有一位资深的学者就问我一个问题，说那两上里面有没有一上一下？这就是刚才安迪教授讲的，就是这个东升西降这个问题。这个我也讲讲我的一些看法。但是讲这个看法的时候呢，我想我有一个对两边中美两边研究者都是有一个 wishful thinking， 就是一厢情愿。你比如美国这边有一个叫Golden Trump 张家敦，对吧？张家敦呢，他 Coming Collapse of China， 他是如果我们看这本书是2001年写，他是华裔律师，他写了以后呢，就说呢，5年中国就要垮台。那么到了2006年，大家问他，说中国不是还在那儿吗？他说再给我1年。结果据说，因为我从来没见过他，据说他直到现在还在说中国马上就要垮台。所以这个呢是 wishful thinking。那还有一批人呢，就说美国要垮台。很多说法，你像清华大学有一位叫胡安刚的学者，他就说中国全面碾压美国，是吧？各个方面，不但是经济，而且科技、军事。这种说法呢，实际上有一些其他学者也在说。你像这个久汉高尔顿，他就是说什么呢？美帝国的崩溃要崩溃了。那么他的这本书是2009年出的，他说2020年要崩溃，那就是说现在5年前就要崩溃了。那么中国大陆呢，2013年上海出版社就给他出版了。所以呢，这两种看法，说对方要马上崩溃，我是说是一厢情愿的一种，都不符合实际。下一页。那么这个我就快速的过一下，从这个图里可以看出来啊，确实中美之间的这个 gap 原来非常大，现在在缩小。90年的时候只是美国的6.1%，就是 GDP， 日本已经过了一半了。那么到了2022年，中国达到了70%以上，日本就降到了16%，俄罗斯基本持平。那么后来呢？去年、前年，中国又开始下降，这个 gap 又开始下降。我们下一页。那么这个如果是人均产值的话，日本在90年代曾经超过了美国，这就为什么当时 Japan Bashing， 对吧？那后来当时这个中国才是1.3呢，现在虽然增长到了16.6%呢。这个日本降到了不到一半，但是两边的差距还是非常大的，所以这个一定要有个清醒的认识。下一页。那么我们下一个问题就是怎么去看美国？我这个很快的，其实大家也都知道，第一就是政治上分裂，然后种族主义，然后这个管理能力，还有经济问题，还有麦卡锡主义造成软实力下降。那下一页，我们都知道这个国会山1月6号这个事儿呢，再加上大选，实际上现在这次大选前，很多人都非常担心，就说如果川普又输了怎么办？ 又说了很多人就说可能美国要有内战，但实际上为了准备这个，已经有一个电影叫《Civil War》，对吧？它是，那么实际上没有输呢，那实际上就是有一个宪政危机，但是这里面的分歧不是那么简单的，因为我老在说呢，这民主党搞的有一些像文化大革命一样，比如说什么性别问题等等。那么为什么这么样的一个分裂，所以就使得大家说不是 United States of America， 而是 Divided States of America， 对，这个是非常严重。而且为什么可以理解，在什么程度上这个川普这次能够上台？如果大家看了这个 Vance， 对吧，《乡下人的悲歌》这本书，可能就有一个体会。下一个就是白人呢，这个在中西部啊，那个生活有一点惨不忍睹，那样的一个状况。我们再看那个第二个方面呢，就是种族问题和白人至上，这些问题刚到 Berkeley 的时候啊，我听到在这个湾区都在说，我们这边别看有很多少数民族，但是大熔炉 melting pot。那现在实际上大家说，实际上是 mixed salad， 你放在盘子里好像融在一起，并没有融在一起，所以这个问题并没有解决。那还有白人至上主义，这回川普对吧，非常明显。下一个，那你看这张图，耳朵被打了是吧，川普。那作为一个总统候选人，前总统，当然了，美国这种事儿，你看肯尼迪也过去也有过。他的控枪啊，还有他的很多其他问题，特别是他的 drug， 对吧？滥用这个药物，还有呢这个非法移民这些问题啊，都说明在治理上出现了问题了。下一个，再有就是经济除了它的1%对99%，对吧？占领华尔街，我们看我刚到这个 California 的时候，1981年那个时候债务并不是太高，你看从那后来上升得非常快，以至于这个 Musk 他现在做这件事情 cutting budget， 他说我们如果再不 cut， 美国就要破产，所以他有他的道理。下一个，那么这个呢，就是美国软实力遭到了很大，那现在是麦卡锡主义的回归，这个是 MIT 的教授，是 Material Science， 陈刚被 FBI 抓捕关到监狱里关了1年，又放出来，这个 MIT 的校长就出来抗议，很多人，科学家也抗议，说什么呢 ？We are all 刚称，他写了100多人签名，为什么呢？有一个罪状。说他是干什么呢？说你怎么就给中国的什么国家教育部、国家科委审核他那些项目，来决定这个要不要给 grant。后来这些 MIT 这些教授们说，我要doing that all the time， 对吧？我们这个作为一个科学研究，你怎么就能因为这个还有其他有些原因，把他关到监狱里？所以现在1年以后放出来以后，这个陈刚教授人说你现在做什么研究啊？他说我现在 I'm doing research on water， 对吧？我不做什么那个其他了，对吧？就是这样，有很多这样的事情发生，这就造成了软实力的下降。下一个，但是啊，尽管美国有这些弱点、劣势，但是有很强的优势。也就是说，美国的相对的这个 decline， 只不过是相对而言，特别是跟1949年、1945年二战刚赢和1990年这个出现了 unipolar， 对吧？冷战结束，在那个时候，美国是 unipolar， 对吧？它是，而且美国经济占50%以上，在1945年，现在25%，那25%还是最强的，这个应该看到。 那第二个就是它的科技发展，对吧？军事。第三个呢，就是软实力，而且话语权。第四个呢，就是同盟体制。第五个其实很重要，就是美国自己有纠错能力。就美国它很多事情，越南战争、伊拉克、阿富汗，尽管阿富汗撤军很仓促，但是都代表他认识到这个方向是错了，所以他要把这个纠错。那么最近这个布林肯在他退下去之前，他说了3点。他说我们的策略就是 alliance, competition and investment。后来我就问我的学生，我说你们看看都是什么？哎，都解释了。最后 investment， 他说我们要做更多的 investment 到亚太地区。我说不对，这个 investment 呢不是到亚太，而是呢到美国本土，要治理它的 infrastructure， 要把台积电，要把 bring industry back， 就我们自己要做。刚才安迪教授讲了很多啊，我非常同意他的这些观点。那么实际上 Trump Make America Great Again 呢，基本就是沿着这条思路。实际上他是想把美国搞得更加强大。当然很多事情是事与愿违的。实际上现在我们还在观察。下一页。那么中国想要什么？那中国就是习近平也讲了，就是相互尊重、和平共处和合作相赢，而且还提出了四条红线。第一，台湾问题；第二，民主和人权；第三，中国的发展；第四，这个中国的发展权利，一个是发展道路，一个是发展权利。下一页。那么现在呢，就是说呢，最重要的主导中美关系的，可能就是 summit， 就是所谓的领袖外交。那么上一次是4个月前，2024 11月在 APEC meeting 和拜登。那现在正在紧锣密鼓在谈的，就是习和川普，对吧？现在各种说法都有，应该在最近的不久就会公布。那么这也反映了这个川普所奉行的、所信奉的大国外交，对吧？刚才安迪教授讲到了，又回到了 triangle relationship。那么他还没有上台，就说我要到中国去，然后上台不久说习近平要过来，还要参加他的登基大典。那现在又说呢，又说他去，又说他过来，反倒是中国不太说这个东西，但是肯定也在策划的过程中。下一页。那我们看这个川普 2.0 啊，我觉得它有3个，除了它的 MAGA 是它以外，它有3个呢，最主要的，也就是说呢，在世界和美国，它本来是个 global leadership， 现在呢是美国优先，内政和外交是内政优先。现在这个在搞什么呢？在搞这个 deep state， 是吧？在不但是把federal government 公检法有点像中国的文化大革命，而且连军队的将领们现在也在搞。那么在第3个就是在经济和战略，最起码现在它是经济优先，它搞这个贸易战。下一页。这个里面就是从乌克兰到中国这个问题啊，刚才我们都讲了，对吧？待会儿我讲它的台湾牌，专门又讲一下台湾。下一页。那么川普所以要从中东撤，要从欧洲撤，就是要对付最主要的对手中国。那么呢，他现在主要搞一些，就是要搞这个目前的这个关税战、经济战、科技战，而且呢，在印太地区、亚太地区 一个台湾海峡，一个南海。下一页。那这一点呢，要稍微多讲一点，因为我们现在在台北，就是说呢，他到底要在台湾要做什么？刚才安迪教授已经讲了，他会不会又发一个第4公报啊等等，这个肯定是北京也在期待着，会不会要有下一个 deal？ 但是呢，这个川普他的这个我这次因为是 on leave 嘛，除了教课，我还去拜会一些，所以前些日子到陆委会，都跟他们主委、副主委跟他们聊过。那么也跟比如说像吕秀莲，我也跟他拜会过，我们也聊过。其中一个很大的问题啊，就是说，你比如吕秀莲就跟我说，他说我们台湾的悲情始自马关条约，100多年前，他说你们大陆把台湾放弃了，你们应该跟我们道个歉。那当然我跟他讲，我说这是清朝吧，当时怎么样。但是这里面最关键的是什么呢？就是布林肯前一段说的一段话，就是说在大国博弈这个过程中，你不是邀请的客人，你就是饭桌上的菜单。我们就聊这个，我跟陆委会我说，难道台湾想成为下一次菜单吗？你100多年前你不能自己组织自己的把握自己的命运，对吧？因为是清朝和日本决定了，对吧？然后呢，到后来台湾，所以能够造成现在的分离，那不是第7舰队进来了嘛，对吧？冷战的开始，韩战的开始，有这样的一些客观条件。那如果像这个川普，他现在说的什么呢 ？You are in no position 跟乌克兰，你没有 strength， 你没有实力，你没有，而且这个川普说你没有 card， 而且最后川普还说什么呢？你为什么不去跟俄罗斯谈呀？哎，这些话如果我们想啊，如果是问台湾这边，那不是一样的吗？你为什么不去谈呢？你为什么你不行的话，那就大国来决定嘛。所以呢，我这一段跟有相关方我们交流的过程中，也提到他的这个，因为这个符合美国利益的，就是这个所谓保卫台湾，这个咱们苏启兄的那本书啊，我其实 word by word 非常精准，就把那个整个那个判断两岸，其中就有一条，就是说美国他真正想要的，他是要打代理人战争，他不是说自己要派部队过来。我们有些，其实我在今天刚结束在台大的一个课，我们一半的学生还认为美国可以出兵。我问他，我说你们谁？大概有一半，还有一半认为日本可以出兵。我说这些问题你们都是从哪儿得到的？这些概念都是青年20岁上下。所以呢，我觉得呢，目前这样的一个问题，我们看这个川普啊，他打这个乌克兰这个事儿，他确实是要避战的，他不要自己出来，非常得意。他的这个国防部长奥斯汀直接说，我们的目的是削弱俄罗斯。如果真是台海打一仗，那一定是两败俱伤，生灵涂炭。你看现在几百万乌克兰人流离失所，那这样的一个情况下，那美国那当然就渔翁得利，对吧？所以是代理人战争，这个呢，我觉得是，可能就是目前，但是这个下面要做什么样的动作，现在还不是太清楚。下一页。那在中美博弈的情况下，最重要的就出来了，就是第三方。 那第三方在亚太地区，就是日本、韩国、东南亚，包括什么俄罗斯。现在不是美俄要接近吗？所以大家都在说了，会不会反基辛格呀？又出来另外一场，所以都在讨论这个问题。那么这个我们看上一次的见面，拜登，这个日韩，习近平也是日韩，对吧？那现在韩国尹锡悦要出现变化，石破茂又有一些想法，所以现在是一个亚太地区非常 dramatic 这样的一个时候。那这个时候，台湾应该如何应对，实际上是一个很大的题目。下一个，我觉得今后我自己的一个判断跟大家分享，有4个不会停止。第一个不会停止，就是中国的经济、军事成长不会停止，尽管有现在的，我同意刚才安迪讲什么碧桂园呀等等，有恒大，但是呢，这是整个过程中的一个低谷。那今后呢，还会继续往前。我们从过去的几十年都可以看出来。第二个就是 power transition process across Pacific 不会停止。第三个，美国的 bipartisan determination to prevent China from taking over and continue to play the Taiwan card will not stop。就是台湾牌一定会接着打。我在前一些日子在澳门开会，这个王金平还有一个这个网络上的讲话，后来最后我们都发言，大家都说啊，那是不是那个美国就不打台湾牌了？我说美国还是要打台湾牌。为什么打台湾牌？打台湾牌代价低，成本低，收效大。他动动嘴动动腿就能搅得两岸这个天翻地覆。比如什么叫动动嘴啊？他在美国国会通过一个 resolution， 台湾关系法等等。什么叫动动腿啊？他派一个国会议员，派一个这个 speaker 来一下，那他就能够，然后将来呢，他可以拿这个做筹码，说那我就不去了。那你要做到什么呀？那现在还有很多说法，这个台湾牌就是说要不要有个 deal 啊？有的这个，现在美国的这个政策界都在评估这个，就是台湾到底有没有那么重要，对吧？有各种各样的说法，现在都有。当然，美国有个特点，它不搞一刀切，它各种各样的意见，但是这种意见放在它的主流外交杂志上讨论。因为美国有一个现象，就是 ideas and foreign policy， 就思想先行，先要讨论。所以我觉得这些呢都是非常值得注意的。那么再一个呢，这个中国的 determination 也不会停止，就所谓的站起来、富起来、强起来。下一页。那么对这个亚太地区和世界格局会不会出现我用的一个问号，就是今后会不会中美两大集团？但是呢，也就是说，美国领导的像日本、韩国四方机制、五眼联盟、NATO Plus、IPEF， 那和中俄领导的上海合作组织、金砖，还有朝鲜、北朝鲜、RCEP， 这里边会不会出现一个Dual leadership structure， 就是双领导体制？那我在2009年，大陆有个杂志叫《美国研究》，我那时候就发过一个文章呢，跟大家讨论。那么这里面还有东盟、印度，而且中美的竞争是 Beyond Indo-Pacific， 一直要到非洲、到拉美，甚至于太平洋诸岛。下一个。那么我今天呢，跟大家分享的主要就是从这个 wishful thinking， 从两上两下，从美国是个什么样的，美国的战略的这个优先，中国想要什么，然后川普2.0，美国的台湾牌， 和今后的4个不会停止。好，今天讲到这里，谢谢大家。
谢谢赵教授 ，Thank you very much. Now we invite the second panelist 辜主编。那我介绍一下辜主编，他在天下杂志是资深的主编 ，Managing Director of Commonwealth Magazine, which is the top magazine on international political economy in Taiwan. And he could be the person that interviewed the most think tankers and scholars and congressmen in the DC after Trump's inauguration. So he was there for several weeks to interviews. So now invite 辜主编请。
两位苏老师，还有那个赵老师，还有distinguished guest， 还有在座所有的先进各位好，我是辜树人，my name is Shuren Gu from Commonwealth Magazine. I've been working for Commonwealth for like 20 years. So my main interest is before Trump became president in 2016. My main research focus is on China. But after 2016, I switched my focus to America because the change in the U.S. is really too big to ignore. I went to graduate school in U.S. from around 2000 to 2004. At that time, Trump was still a businessman, and his show, The Apprentice, 那个时候是最红的时候，所以 I got to know him when he was a businessman. So when he became the president in 2016, it's also a very shock to me. So I switched my research focus to America, trying to find out what happened to U.S. So, 那我今天please allow me to speak in Chinese because I only have 10 minutes, so I can do it faster. But my presentation is in English. Okay. 那我今天很快就是说来分享一下那个 Trump 2.0 What's the next step? OK， 那我今天主要是从一个 trade 还有 industry perspective 来谈论这个问题。好，请下一张，谢谢。I'd like to talk about two very important questions. The first, would Trump tariff target Taiwan? 大家都知道，就是说4月2号他就要公布他的那个report， 就是 USTR 还有 Commerce Department 会公布 report 来说谁会在他的那个 reciprocal tariff 的名单上面。然后第二个 question 就是 would Silicon Shield still exist under Trump 2.0？ 这个是对台湾非常非常重要的一个问题。台积电刚刚宣布了1000亿美元的新投资在美国 Arizona， 然后这个在台湾 sparked a huge debate in Taiwan。下一张，谢谢。那 I will start with this picture， 就是TSMC Chairman C.C. Wei announced his new investment in U.S. with President Trump and the Commerce Secretary Lunick。那这个就是我不好意思加一下，说我这个 presentation is based on my conversation I did with a lot of American experts, trade expert, national security expert, and semiconductor expert, before and after the election, and also before and after the inauguration in January 20th. 大部分的美国人他们对这个投资案都有一个蛮 positive view 的。他们的原因是什么？他说，因为台湾现在虽然跟美国的官方在部长级minister level officials, working level officials have the direct contact, but not the very top level. 就是说，台湾的总统是没有办法跟美国总统有 direct contact， 跟 White House 没有 direct contact。所以Chairman C.C. Wei 有这个，就是说有这个机会跟川普站在一起，共同宣布，尤其是川普他最爱的这件事情就 helping Trump claim victory。Tariff is working， 就他最爱的 tariff is working to bring new investment to U.S. 所以这个对台湾在那个川普政府前面的那个 image 是一个正向的一个加分，这是美国人的解读。好，下一张。但是呢，这件事情就是说 ，we have a good start with the Trump administration, but it doesn't guarantee Taiwan free from Trump tariff。为什么？如果从我们看那个美国川普在当总统之后，他发布行政命令的很多报告，尤其是那个 American First Trade Policy， 还有 Reciprocal Trade Plan， 他在报告里面 他说他的那个要成为美国的那个加关税的 target 在加拿大、Mexico 跟中国之后，大概有4个条件。第一个就是大家都知道 trade deficit， 台湾现在是美国第6大的贸易赤字来源。但是大家除了那个 trade deficit 之外，其实还有很重要其他3个条件。另外一个就是跟美国的关税差距、关税税率的差距 （trade rate gap）。那台湾跟美国的关税差距大概有3.1个百分点。关税差距最大的国家是印度，那 trade deficit 最大的来源是中国。那这个里面呢，还有红色的 orange bar 这些地方是台湾的科技代工厂有很大的生产基地的地方。除了 China 之外 ，Mexico、越南、India、iPhone 生产线，富士康的 iPhone 生产线，这些地方都是2016年、2018年中美贸易战开始之后，台商把产线移到那边去。那如果今天川普在这些国家加关税，那对台商来讲 ，we will put Taiwanese company into a very difficult position。下一张。另外2个条件，汇率。那川普他会一直觉得他的贸易伙伴汇率贬值，对美国不公平从美国赚了很多钱去。那我们看一下，这是过去1年各个主要贸易伙伴对美元的汇率的变动。我们可以看到台湾对新台币对美元的贬值大概7%，蛮高的这个当然也有国际市场、国际经济变动的因素，可是，在川普的眼中，这个就是不可接受的。那贬值最多的是墨西哥披索当然川普已经对墨西哥动手。另外，台湾有很多工厂在那边布局的，包括越南、印度，对美元的贬值的幅度都是很大。那最后一个就是 non-tariff barrier， 就是非关税障碍。非关税障碍，这是一个美国智库，它列出了对美国非关税障碍最多国家 ，India、Vietnam and China。所以我们都可以看到，除了台湾符合4个条件的3个之外，就可能 potential Trump tariff target 然后另外还有台上有很多制造业布局的这些国家，也都可能成为川普下一步的目标。下一张，谢谢。所以说，台湾很有可能变成目标。那刚好是今天早上的新闻就是说美国的那个 Commerce Secretary Benson， 他说就说美国的目标，他称作 Dirty 15，就是他这些所有的贸易伙伴里面，他觉得有15%的国家是应该要被那个加征对等关税的，他把它称作 Dirty 15， 是15%的美国贸易伙伴。那台湾很有可能在那个 Dirty 15里面。那这个最后一个刚刚讲过，好，下一张，谢谢。另外一个问题就是说，我们跟川普政府有一个好的开始，也不能保证就是说台湾的细盾是可以继续存在。这怎么说我问了很多美国的那个半导体专家说，台积电现在又加码投资美国1000亿美元，对，1000亿美元，然后未来到了2030，在美国会有6座的晶圆厂，2座的先进封装厂，加1座的研发中心，你们觉得够了吗？我得到的答案是不够了。那他们给的理由是什么？第一个，他们觉得只有晶圆厂不够，美国自己有设计，现在有晶圆厂还不够，因为他们还需要先进的 processing technology， 就是制程技术，尤其是现在 AI 最需要的那个 CoWoS， 那个封装技术，因为他们觉得你没有这个先进的制程技术，你光有晶圆代工厂，尤其是台积电，技术都控制在台积电手上，从台湾送到那个美国，但是不在美国人的手上，他们觉得他们还是不够放心。第二个就是他们需要更多的那个封装的产能，因为你如果晶圆在美国制造出来，如果你还要把它 send back to Taiwan in Southeast Asia for package， 这个对于 semiconductor supply chain security make no sense， 就是 send back and forth across Pacific is make no sense for the supply chain security。第三个就是除了先进的 chip production， 他们也需要 legacy chip， 就是成熟制程的产能。 虽然成熟制程大家都说现在中国的成熟制程产能越来越多，已经是 over capacity， 但他们觉得因为绝大部分的晶片需求还是在那个成熟制程，所以他们也需要成熟制程。另外一个就是说，台积电的上游供应商，化学原料啊、气体这些供应商，晶圆像环球晶做的那个矽晶圆，他们也需要这些中上游供应商去到美国，在美国形成一个 ecosystem。那他们的，我就问他们说，那 what is the ultimate goal？ 如果他们要 achieve supply chain security and resilience， 大部分的答案就是这个是其中一个兰德公司 Rand Corporation 的 expert told me， 他说他估计美国的晶片产能应该要满足他们5%到10%的国内晶片的需求，但是这个5%到10%，how to translate it into the actual production capacity？ 我这边不知道，就是说一座晶片上月产能有几十万、几百万片的晶圆，但是这个5%到10%到底指了多少？现在还没有这个计算出来。那它最主要的就是说，尤其是在国防用到的晶片，那个 critical infrastructure 需要的晶片，像电网、电信基础设施跟那个data center 需要晶片，他们需要是在 local production。好，下一张。那所以说，如果从这个台积电的那个从半导体这个 supply chain， 它的本质是非常复杂的 ，very complex，also interdependence。那有一位专家就跟我说，这样的 nature 就让美国他想要那个semiconductor self-efficient，complete self-efficient， 几乎是 impossible。所以在这样的情况之下，台湾 remain ally with US nearly guarantee， 这是一个从比较积极的角度来看，因为他们如果要跟中国竞争这个科技领导地位的话 ，semiconductor 很重要，这个时候他们就需要台湾。但是呢，I think Taiwan has to be very cautious too。为什么？因为有一个专家跟我说 ，What America is doing now is to de-risk without decoupling。就是在半导体产业这一块，但是我觉得我们要很小心 ，if the de-risk become decoupling， then Taiwan may have trouble。说，因为它会 weakening 台湾在美国的心中的战略价值。好，下一张。当然最重要就是还是川普本人。那刚刚其他两位专家都讲过，川普是非常不可预测性的。那川普他本人，he is not committed to anything， 就是他也没有 moral baseline， 他对于美国的外交也看不出一个 holistic view on U.S. diplomacy。他最后有没有一个 grand strategy 我们现在不知道，但是目前看来是没有的。所以说他 treating every single issue as an independent, separate business。不像在过去的美国总统，他们是有一个整体的战略、外交、贸易都是绑在一起的。他 how to treat the country, treat his ally and partner 有一个整体观，但是川普是看不出来是有的。所以就是说，大部分的专家就跟我说 ，tariff is coming anyway, even if you have a very good relationship with Trump。就算是 Modi Prime Minister Ishiba of Japan。一开始跟川普建立很好关系，很成功的 meeting with Trump， 但是这个都不能 guarantee Trump is going to impose tariff on other countries, even the closest ally and partners。好，下一张。而且川普他本人的那个 priority 他一直在改变，你不知道什么时候会变成他的 target， 就是说会取决于他的国内的政治的考量，还有他个人的利益。所以最后就是说 ，the traditional and long-time U.S. commitment to allies, partners in Taiwan is likely to become a big question mark, and we already see it in Europe, Ukraine, and also in North America themselves, Canada and Mexico, U.S. neighbors. So, what would happen to Taiwan? 虽然那个 就是国务卿 Marco Rubio 他在对媒体采访的时候，他讲的话还是非常非常传统的美国对台湾的政策基调。可是最后的决策者川普会不会同样有这个 commitment， 就是我们都需要非常注意的。So I'll stop here. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for that very insightful observation and comments. And now, last but not least, we welcome Dr. Su Qi to give his comment. Doctor, please.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know, who haven't read my earlier writings, you probably don't know that I'm one of few Cassandras in Taiwan. I've been very worried about Taiwan security for a long time, and screaming yell hell for a long time, and few people believe me. But now I think I used to be distinct minority, but now I believe I'm a strong minority, not yet majority. But as you can tell, I put myself the last because you have already digested your dinner. Otherwise, I don't want you to upset your dinner. I've been a long time studying U.S.-China-Taiwan relations. The last 10 years, Taiwan security, because as I explained in the blue pamphlet, blue book, that you may have a copy with you. Beginning in 2015, I realized that China is growing so fast, especially militarily. I later found out in a U.S. A study published by U.S. Congress that in year 2000, Taiwan by itself could defeat PLA invasion. We could win a war in year 2000. In 2008, we are already inferior, but with U.S. coming in 2008, we could still defeat the PLA. In 2015, China had a capability to partially blockade Taiwan. By 2018, China could completely blockade Taiwan. And 2020, when China tested successfully its first hypersonic missiles, U.S. carrier groups, beginning that point, 2020, dared not, always sailed away when the crisis occurred in Taiwan. So 2020 was a turning point. Carrier groups would move itself away instead of coming toward Taiwan. And the last year, 2024, according to Pentagon paper, 2024, was published in November, that China was able to, quote unquote, paralyze or disrupt the C4ISR. I don't know if you're familiar with this. C4ISR, command, control, communication, computer. I is intelligence, S surveillance, R reconnaissance. In other words, the brain and the nerve system of the U.S. military. In other words, U.S. could not find Chinese platforms. Either the drone or the fighters or the ships could not find their counterparts. So, according to this study, I think U.S. lost its supremacy in Western Pacific already, clearly, in my view. So it's not me. So 台湾有人说我是以美论 I'm skeptical of U.S. capability. No, I'm a friend of U.S. But I'm skeptical of U.S. capability to defend Taiwan. 没有这个能力了。所以 I'm quoting in my study, I'm quoting U.S. authoritative voices. So 不是我是以美，是美以美。那美国人怀疑自己， That's the situation now. So, yeah, 再下一页好了。Yeah, this is more theoretical. I believe, so what's the solution? I believe the world is already bipolar, economically bipolar, not overall bipolar, but economically bipolar. I think Andy's PPT and Chen Sheng, Professor Zhao's PPT also testify to this point, bipolar economically. But in East Asia, it's militarily bipolar. That's the situation now. So for the world, for East Asia to stabilize, the only way to go is for US and China to strike a deal. So over the last 2 years, because when I realized that US and China are, Taiwan security was at peril, I began to look at the possibility of US-China deal. And now I pin my hope on this. All the more necessary for Taiwan. 对台湾来说最重要，因为 for China, zero chance for cross-strait dialogue, and unreliable U.S.-China deal. So if China, as soon as China realizes that their hopes for U.S.-China deal are exhausted, then they would come to the conclusion that peaceful unification is impossible. Then they have to think about, well, are we going to allow this to drag on longer, or we have to put an end to it? So I think for Taiwan, so that's why I hope the U.S.-China deal is the last straw we could hang on to. Even though 下一页, even though I agree with Andy when he said that no realistic Trump-Xi deals would be big enough to stabilize the relationship. I agree. I think this is very true. Likewise, recently, this article just last week, Scott Kennedy article came across my desk, and he said a deal between U.S.-China is possible but not likely. I agree with him too. Oh, 下一页. And he analyzed that why it's possible. I'll skip this part. And 下一页, he analyzed how come it's possible but it's not likely on the U.S. side, on the China side. He gave the reasons. I skip this part, and you have my handout and email tomorrow. Okay, 再下一页. Okay, conclusion. So Kennedy's conclusion, Scott Kennedy, CSI's conclusion, is a more likely outcome is continued escalation. I agree. I think it's very likely that off and on, and nobody knows Trump is thinking, and his team is divided, and his attention is not focused on China yet, but so it's a stop and go. But I think in the meantime, it's likely that in the process, something may go wrong, and China is now still waiting patiently for the final picture to be clarified. 再下一页. But I would like to say that not only Kennedy has fault, but I think a lot of analysts, a lot of the government media also are often, when they analyze U.S.-China relations, they forgot about Taiwan. They left Taiwan out of the picture. Unfortunately, I think Taiwan played a key role because Taiwan is not a dependent variable. They treated Taiwan as almost you're there and you do what we say. But what I'm saying is no. Taiwan is an independent variable. Taiwan has its own will. Taiwan has its capabilities. Taiwan can rock the boat. And few people in the West paid attention to that. So likewise, Kennedy, I think, made that mistake. 再下一页. 为什么台湾那么重要呢？这几个理由了哈。第一个就是 the hawks are in charge. 现在 at all three capitals, 三个 都不好啊。然后呢，这个 great powers are suspicious of each other. 然后 China is particularly suspicious, distrustful of U.S. over Taiwan. When they talk with the U.S., Taiwan is always top of the list, always top of the list. And even recently, they had their number 10 military exercise. They don't call it military exercise, but it's the number 10 this year alone. This is only March. 已经有10个演习了. This one, they did it without warning. Without warning to Taiwan. And then, when they gave the rationale for this exercise, they said it's aimed toward the U.S. 不是针对台湾，针对美国。所以现在大陆现在把美国看得很重，然后就是说他把美国在台湾问题的角色看得很重，所以台湾是 plays a big role in U.S.-China relations。再下一个，美国最忽视的、最忽略或者they understood but they pretended they're not paying attention. I think Taiwan has been changing the status quo. China has been changing the status quo. There's no doubt about it. But Taiwan has also been changing the status quo. 那蔡英文的两岸互不隶属not subordinate to each other, is different from the old formulation. 赖清德 the most recent in March this year 境外敌对实力 is making it further moving away from the old pattern. But none of this has been given, paid attention to by U.S. as if Taiwan is a nice guy. But I think DPP, Tsai Ing-wen and Lai Ching-te are changing the status quo, unnerving China unnecessarily and creating trouble for U.S.-China relations. In the future, this may go on. 好，再来，下一页。Now, I'm going to add to 2 points which I think is fairly new. Because I'm a Cassandra, in Taiwan we call it 乌鸦, 我是大乌鸦. People are tired of me, and I know that. I don't want to hear bad news. So I stopped writing op-eds 3 years ago. And I wrote a book. I'm working on my next English book. But other than that, I don't speak out often. But so this point is new. This one and next one is new because I think it's been largely unnoticed, which I happen to think are critical to our understanding of the general picture. I think Taiwan's strategic value to U.S. is going down. It's going down. Especially because of the TSMC. TSMC is leaving Taiwan, of course not anytime soon, but it's surely. It's not slowly, but surely, maybe quickly, I don't know, but surely. And don't count just TSMC alone. It's a cluster. It's a cluster. Some American officials and big CEOs are already coming to Taiwan and to assemble TSMC and some of its related clusters for meetings in Taiwan already after the announcement. So it's not just one company leaving Taiwan, but I don't know how many companies will slowly or surely moving out of Taiwan. So it's going to have impact on our economy, and it will depreciate strategic value. So Trump, who knows nothing about Taiwan, he will say, okay, now we got TSMC. Taiwan is not that important anymore. It's not even, tip of the pen. So that's something we should pay attention. Now, 下一页, watch out for this person, Michael Anton. This name never appeared in Taiwan's media. I noticed this guy because I have to read some of his work. I read his. I cited here the Flight 93 election and the last line, the stakes, the book, 400 page long. I consider this guy, here in Chinese I call 理论大师. He's the guy who's the brain of Republican Party. The 93 Flight 93. I don't know if you heard of this. A movie is made of this incident. 这个93 Flight 93是一个联航93，那个班机在911的时候，911它没有撞到去，中间被乘客然后半路掉下去。那这个里面那些乘客呢 ，they try to overwhelm the terrorists. So their slogan is charge or die. 所以我们要冲到那个驾驶舱，宁可中枪，反正我们要死了，被他拿出来就像飞机要撞了，我宁可冲过去，我还有机会把飞机抢回来。So he came up with this slogan to call out the Republicans that this election 2016 is so important. It's like Flight 93. If we don't charge and win this election, we will all die. Republicans will all die. And after Trump won the election, he credited this guy, Anton. He's critical to my victory. I owe him a debt. And this guy again wrote a book, 6, which laid out his plan for Republican. In it, if you're interested, he said U.S. should be rescued by a Caesar. Aha, a Caesar. So that's what Trump thinks to himself. That yeah, I'm the Caesar, new Caesar. So this guy, Trump put him at the policy planning staff. That's the brain trust of the State Department. Okay. So and what he said. Okay, 下一页。他就 in 2021 he put out an article, 写了一篇文章说 why it's not clearly not in Americans to go to war with Taiwan. 那然后就为台湾打仗，完全不符合美国的利益。他这里面有2个 point， 一个 point 就是台湾没那么重要，我们没有台湾，美国好得很，不需要为他打仗。第二个。这是下面的，就是说，就算我们去打，我们也不会赢。他2021他刚刚在国安会待过 ，he just came out of National Security Council， 他说我们不会打赢的。那他的文章里面写，the U.S. Navy is a mess. U.S. what is a mess is the military industry is so bad. I mean, it's all in this article. That's 2021, and we know it's getting worse. So his if you look at this guy there, look at this guy there. Yeah, Mark Rubio can say all the nice things and all that, but when they are crafting a policy, I think this guy's input would be important because I believe he has the ears of Trump himself because he was campaign person. Okay, 再来，下一页。Another unnerves me even more is this guy, Ivan. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I never met him. Kanapathy or Jian Yirong. He wrote this article edited by in the middle Matt Pottinger. Matt Pottinger, you know him. He's very pro-Taiwan. He comes to Taiwan, I don't know, at least once a year, especially during DPP time. And his article said over there, down there, he said Taiwan has to be able to endure all those attacks, missiles and bombs and infrastructure, cyber attacks for up to 2 months all by yourself. When I saw that, I said, wait a minute. Can we do it? Can Taiwan do it? For 2 months all by ourselves? I doubt it. I doubt anyone. 下一页. I doubt anyone. The last line. I doubt anyone in Taiwan, even those in the military, could vouch that we can hold on our own for 2 months. As someone who used to serve in the government, it saddens me to say this, but we just can't hang on that long. We're not Ukraine. Because if things happen, no foreign aid can come in. no foreign personnel can come in, and we can't go out. We're stuck here. And we can't hold our own for 2 months. I doubt it. And for him to say that, and for this book to be published into Chinese, well, I think the editor, the Chinese editor or translator, should be spanked, because it will rock the confidence of the Taiwan people. Okay, 再下一页. So my conclusion is that U.S. is increasingly less likely to come Taiwan's rescue, and China is increasingly more likely to seek unification through non-peaceful means. And Taiwan, not mindful of national interest capabilities, remains steeped in fierce internal power struggle, and 大罢免就是这样, and frequently provoking China. And this is the situation now. So my last hope, 最后一页. So I'm worried and pin my hope. I think the remedy is U.S.-China deal. I know it's difficult, maybe unlikely at this point of time, but that's the only thing which will salvage Taiwan's demise and inject degree of stability to the world. I hope U.S.-China will come to that point. Yeah, that's my hope. Yeah, thank you very much. 谢谢.
Well, on behalf of the foundation, we had the intention to give you, all of us, a happy evening. But it seems after having listened to the speakers, well, the mood is a little transformed into negative and worrisome. But so perhaps now we still have some minutes. The party will end at 9:20. Sir, please.
Okay.
Madam.
So basically, what I wanted to ask is about the triangle of China, Russia, U.S. relations. You know, like all the basically the speakers we had today spoke about the bipolar world. But to what extent do you think China is using and abusing Russia to get at the states, and to what extent Putin is happy to play the second fiddle to China in order also to get at the states? And you know, if that is remotely true, then is it possible that what Trump tries to do in Ukraine is not at all about Ukraine, but trying to diminish this quite useful or necessary relationship between China and Russia, so that he would finally get to what he really strategically wants, that is to have a confrontation or a closer deal with China?
So perhaps,
No, I think I already addressed that in my remarks, so let's hear somebody else's opinion.
A very good question. There is an old saying, Winston Churchill during World War II, there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemy. So in international relations, anything can change. But having said that, I guess is to move Russia away from current relationship with China. It's, at least for the time being, it's not that easy. You really need a pretty much high price to pay for that. I guess Putin already demonstrated its determination for the holding current so-called territory and other issues. But having said that, my own belief is that either Moscow or Beijing, even though they maintain close tie, but one of the primary reasons for them to do that is because both got heated by Washington. So they were put into a corner in a Chinese word is 抱团取暖. They have to stay together. But in that case, either Moscow or Beijing, they may move quickly if there are good gesture from Washington. So we really now seeing a very dramatic time. But the point is not yet to come, this triangular relationship to change.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps we collect other questions. Yes, please.
So, Dr. Su, since you mentioned that you are not an advocate of American scholasticism, I was wondering if possible that Professor Nathan can shed some light on the real situation of American scholasticism in Washington, D.C., as well as the Say Goodbye to Taiwan movement. Thank you.
There's always been scholars writing about this idea that the United States is overextended, that the Allies have to do more work, that Taiwan is not a key strategic. That line of thinking has been there for a long, long time. In fact, you remember Bob Ross.
Yeah.
How many years ago did Bob Ross write an article in Foreign Affairs saying Taiwan's already finished? I mean, this is 30 years ago. Or Bruce Gilley had an article like that.
Right.
Yeah, so I think right now, if we talk about Congress, if we talk about before Trump was elected, the trend of American public opinion, Congress, the bureaucracy, the deep state and everything was the opposite, is that we need to defend Taiwan, we need to constrain China, we need to, of course, so the things that Suu Kyi published, I mean, quoted where the Pentagon says we're missing this and missing that and China is so strong, those were the lobbying of the Pentagon to say we need more budget, we need more modernized weapons and things like that. But you're right that Trump has said Taiwan is the tip of the pen, and he is going to decide now. So, and as I said in my presentation, I think his gut feeling is that the United States needs to pull back from its commitments around the world.
Okay. So, any other questions in the comments? Yes, please.
Well, first of all, I have to thank Professor Layton that you have helped a lot of my colleagues from Tiananmen Square movement. Wang Juntao, Wang Dan all got your support. I was one of the most wanted student leaders there.
Oh, what's your name?
And thank you very much.
I can't see your name.
Jay Liang.
Liang.
Yeah, that's there's only one Liang on the most wanted list, so you'll find me there. Well, thank you again. And secondly, I want to come back to the two main points from Professor Su's presentation. Number one, Michael Anton's suggestion. Well, I don't think that Michael Anton is taking the charge of the foreign policy law. He was one of the candidates for deputy national security advisor, but he was taken out last December. On the contrary, another scholar might be more important than him now, which is Albert Jacoby. The two have fundamental difference, which is how do we deal with Taiwan. Albert Jacoby said, that's the second conclusion to your conclusion. The second point, that Albert Jacoby would say that Taiwan will be the big bargaining chip to maximize American scale. Not only by just selling to China, stop arms sales and allow China to reunify with Taiwan, but also if, let's just say, goading China into war with Taiwan and allies like Japan, Australia, Philippines, or whoever there, and then I would say America would kill, I would say 3 birds by 1 stone. Number one, of course, goading China into war, that would make China would be much weaker, just pretty much like a Ukraine war to Russia. And number two, if Taiwan gets into war, talent, technology, capital, of course, the whole supply chain migrate to U.S. much quickly. So that's another one. And number three, I would say, at the same time, U.S. is not going to send anyone here, and the U.S. would still keep so-called nominal good relationship with Beijing, in a way. So that would be my guess, rather than you say the grand bargaining would benefit Taiwan the most. On the contrary, the grand bargaining would hurt Taiwan the most. That's my guess. So that's 2 points. Yeah, thank you. And I'd like to hear your response.
Okay, thank you, but our mood is worse now because it seems we are not bound. So any other questions and comments? So please, yeah, Professor Lee, please, the microphone.
Well, thank you very much for the four presentations in this very special evening, and I appreciate Dr. Su's invitation. And my question will be given to Andy. I'm the professor teaching at the College of International Affairs of the National Chengchi University, Mingli, and I'm the I've been the long time watcher of the the issues of national security on the Korean Peninsula. And I think Biden, when he was president, he simply gathered the leaders from Korea and Japan to Washington D.C. and made the Washington Declaration in the 2030, in the year of 2023, May 2023. And during that time, it is very clear that Biden simply provided, the Korean people of the what we call a nuclear umbrella, so as to deter the possible intimidation from the North Korea. But it seems that Trump is going to overthrow everything that Biden made, and this possibly would have brought about the suspicion whether if the United States is going to be credibly try to defend South Korea from the possible intimidation from the North. And recently it is very much saying that the South Korean people have been much more pro the possession of the nuclear weapons. If this is the case, and what the United States, particularly Mr. Trump is going to deal with that. Is there any kind of possibility that another round of nuclear proliferation in this particular area in the East Asia? Thank you very much.
Yeah, your analysis is good. I could only repeat what you said. I think there is such a possibility. Yes, and I think that extended deterrence by the United States under Trump is very worth in that respect as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so any others? Please. So, if not, I just invite the speaker and the panelists to give some conclusions. Okay. So, Andy, you are the first.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, cheer up. I mean, we had a good time anyway, so don't be too sad. I mean, in my talk I suggested that Xi Jinping will wait and see. And, Taiwan's strategy has always been 维持现状 and sort of wait and see if things may take an unexpected turn. So I think it's too early to completely give up, hope. Don't have to go with him. He's just a young guy. He has, yeah. So, and we thank our hosts, Lao Su and Xiao Su, for hosting us this evening.
Okay, thank you so much. I think my conclusion, I would like to share a story I heard, also about semiconductor industry. Before I visit Washington D.C. last September, we went to have an interview with the chairman of Global Wafer, 环球金. Then we talk about his new investment in Texas. Then she told us that the original investment plan was in Korea. They say they had every plan ready, have the workforce ready, have all the talent, engineers ready, the money ready. Then the AIT heard the news, heard the plan. So the director of Taipei office made a phone call to the chairman, introduced to her about the Americans' investment environment, the new American policy to attract semiconductor investment. After that, few days later, she got a phone call from Commerce Secretary Raimondo. Then what happened? What the result? The Korea investment become the U.S. investment. So my conclusion, after I heard this story, my conclusion is that don't underestimate the will of U.S. government to revitalize semiconductor industry. They will do everything to achieve this goal. So I think for Taiwan, we also need to be cautious. We have to maintain the most advanced technology within Taiwan. Thank you.
I'll make 2 points. The first point is that all my years in academia and government taught me that look at international relations, always look at 2 things. One is the intention. The second is capability. And between the 2, I firmly believe that capability is a lot more important than intention, because you can manipulate intention and you can change your intention very dramatically, just like Donald Trump. And people may play, especially old men, people like me. You know, 老男人最快. They can say one thing and do another. So intention is something you watch out for, but you should care more about capability. So I became pessimistic because when I realized in 2015, I said, wow, the military balance is shifting way fast against Taiwan, in favor of China, and against the US. Capability, it's the capability that talks. So I'm so worried now because I know the capability is so tipped in favor of China, because it's in their vicinity, 主场优势, home turf. And that's why I'm worried, more worried than others. And people, especially the media, academic, they play with you get headlines every day, and they're important, but they're not important. Having said that, when I realized that, my second point is that, 当我注意到两岸的 military balance is shifting against the U.S., 我就开始思考说 Taiwan should reach out to China and to work out some kind of dialogue with China. 因为 Taiwan we were a democracy. We are called a vibrant democracy. So at least we should manage our relationship instead of relying on U.S. for managing our relations. So I happen to believe that I'm blue, I'm KMT. I happen to believe that inside KMT, there's dark blue and there's light blue. And inside DPP, there's dark green and light green. I believe that light blue and light green could work together. That's I hope, at least my belief. But you're beginning in 2014. As you witnessed the other day, I'm a dark blue now. At that time, I'm light blue. Why I became a dark blue? Because I'm so disappointed that all this effort came to nothing. I organized seminars. I reached out to my DPP counterparts. We publish books together, we have seminars together, we organize trips abroad to China and to US. Bipartisan, believe me, bipartisan. And Taipei Forum organized several seminars with DPP and communists together. DPP and communists together. Can you believe it? Blue, red, and green in Taiwan. One case I even brought an American, Richard Bush,
Oh,
who was on my board.
who was my student?
Yeah. Look how senior he is. Oh, Richard Bush is 1 year or 2 year my senior. 所以我还带一个美国人来，带一个美国人到台湾来，请他来，然后共产党也来，共产党不会愿意跟美国人在台湾谈台湾问题。可是 I did it, I did it, but everything came to a stop after Tsai Ing-wen became the president. He stopped DPP from joining Taipei Forum, so I sank into depression. And now I look at this picture, I say, wait a minute, this is hopeless. That's why I pin my hope on U.S.-China deal to salvage, because Taiwan now, unfortunately, according to my research, can neither talk, watch out this word, can neither talk nor fight. So there's nothing we can do. So I don't want to sit here and wait for the axe to drop on me. I hope the big brother will somehow do something to help us all, and also help itself. But will it work? I know the odds are not so great, but it's at least something we live for the next day. So anyway, but my job is done. 我希望台湾内部 blue and green and work together is not working. China and Taiwan talk is not working. So I'm tired. I'm handing my relay to Xiaosu for him to take over and do his share. Yeah. 谢谢。
When I mentioned earlier that I read Dr. Su's Su Qi-xiong book, word by word, which I feel highly of my opinion. But as a scholar originally from mainland China, actually we have paid close attention to the publications, to the books, articles published here in Taiwan. In addition to Dr. Su's book, I remember I also read carefully is Long Ying Tai's 1949大江大海 about the critical time in 1949 when the mainland China, Taiwan Strait apart again, and a lot of miserable family situation, separation. And I read that book, this time when I come to Taipei, I realized many families actually, it's not only 1, 2, 3 families with that kind of a separation suffered by the Civil War. So if we look at it today, what happened in Ukraine is a million people suffered or died or moved to other countries. So my point here, if I would like to have my own idea, I would like to see both sides of the Taiwan Strait would avoid the fate of 1949. And the two sides would make it's rather than only when I heard Dr. Su say U.S.-China cutting a deal. Why not the two sides of Taiwan Strait cutting a deal? So I do hope the two sides of Taiwan Strait, as Dr. Kissinger said, both sides of Taiwan Strait would work together so that they can avoid a war, can have a peaceful solution And I hope this is not a wishful thinking. And we may put our hope on the wisdom of Chinese people, on both sides of Taiwan Strait, and we work out some. I agree, Dr. Su's last comments. That is, why not start a dialogue? Actually, Washington also push for that. Say, why not? Why not give a talk? The two sides. So I guess this is either a dangerous point along the Taiwan Strait, but also perhaps a hopeful point for the two sides to realize that would be a huge disaster for both sides of Taiwan Strait if there is a war. So this is my hopeful thinking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And as the moderator of this panel, suddenly when Dr. Su say he will pass this presidency to me because he was deeply disappointed, I feel I'm like Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible. Because it's really difficult. But I really want to cite a phrase of the first paragraph of Schuman Declaration in 1950. The first phrase was, peace cannot be safeguarded without making the creative efforts proportionate to the dangers that threaten it. I suppose that's very important. We have to make creative efforts and proportionate to the dangers that threaten it. When the dangers threatening this peace are so serious, we have to make very creative efforts to resume the dialogue and to start the deal or to start the talk. I suppose we need some creative ideas. But to achieve that, I suppose we have to keep going and keep smiling and keep respecting each other in the discussion. Because now I suppose in all the democracy, we have a big trouble. We don't discuss with people with different opinions. We just talk anything in the echo chamber with the same people, same ideas. That is really the danger threatening democracy and peace. So because no one has an ideal solution for the close relations, for any problems in Taiwan or what are we facing. But so anyone with the intention to present any creative idea should be respected and should be given the chance to talk out, to speak out. So I suppose that's the key. So please, so last but not least, I just give the microphone back to Professor Su to give an ending of this happy party.
When Xiao Su and I planned for this seminar and both right, we hope it's a mixture of business and pleasure. And I'm so sorry that it's mostly business, much less pleasure. But I hope you enjoyed the dinner and this small boat. All the rivers in Taiwan, including Danshui River, are short and shallow. That's why they don't, the boats are not able to travel long distance. So in case you haven't noticed, we're circling around, stopping short at the mouth of the river. And but at least we had a good day. If you arrived early enough, we had sunshine, beautiful. The magic hour is excellent. And I hope you like the food, and I hope you agree or disagree with our talking points. If that's okay.